Tara Bennett for Sci-Fi Wire, and I am so pleased today to be talking with writer Hope Larson. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, and we get to talk about some of the writing that you've been doing of late, especially with DC's Batgirl. But I want to go back a little bit earlier and talk about when you were younger and what you thought your career path was going to be. You started out drawing mostly and then writing. Was there always a confidence in you that both of those skill sets were something that you wanted to pursue, or was it something that came out of visual storytelling that you felt more confident writing?
That's a really good question. When I started doing comics, I was much more into the drawing part because I was not a confident writer. I didn't feel like I had anything to say. I was very young, remember. I was in my very early 20s. So I felt like, what do I even have to say at this point? I've barely lived at all. And I felt more confident with designy elements, and I wanted to play with those. So my early stories are there's not a lot of text. There's almost no text in them, and they're just almost purely visual. And after doing a couple of graphic novels, I really wanted to work harder at telling stories that were, stories and were entertaining. And the reason that I went over to book publishing in the first place was that I really wanted to work with an editor who was going to help me figure that stuff out and push me and teach me. And fortunately, I ended up with just a string of really amazing editors. Jeannie So, who's at Chronicle now, was my first editor, and she taught me so much about storytelling and just was this really gentle and encouraging editor who asked me a lot of questions and helped me learn to think about my own work in a different way. She saw stuff in my work that I didn't really realize was there. She saw these ideas that I was trying to express that I wasn't even aware of trying to put down on the page. And once she was able to point this out to me, I was able to see the things that were interesting to me and sort of go after them more intentionally.
And so once you start, seeing the reception of that, did that lead you, does the reception of how the work has progressed over the years, does that inspire what you do next? Do you go towards something that's a little more scary, or do you go towards the stories that maybe have been percolating for a while and you feel like now I can start digging into them?
Yeah, the reception of my work absolutely dictates the way that I go in the future. A good example would be I did the graphic novel adaptation of A Wrinkle in Time. And I felt weird about that project initially because it was the first time I adapted something, and I was so used to writing my own stuff, and it felt in some ways like a step backwards away from writing to adapting somebody else's work, and that was kind of a scary thing to do. And then when the book came out, the really cool thing that happened was I started getting a lot of parents reaching out to me and saying, this is the first book my kid ever read on their own, ever. Like 7-year-olds, reluctant readers, stuff like that. And that blew me away. And it really made me want to write stories that were gonna be accessible and fun and exciting, that were gonna bring those kids who don't like to read into books.
Was there ever a concern that once you did allow yourself to work in the big two, that there would be a line, regardless of why you did it, that you would feel like it would be harder to go back to creator-owned material? Did it ever feel like, would this change me as a writer in any kind of a negative sense when you found yourself, working on other projects or planning other projects that were outside of what the DC universe, requests of you?
Yeah, I was definitely, that was on my mind for a lot of last year because I was writing Batgirl and I was writing Goldie Vance for Boom. And I'd sold another graphic novel to FSG, but I hadn't started writing yet. And I'd been wondering what this was going to do to my writing when I sat down to write this graphic novel, because it's such a different, DC is 20 pages, 20 pages, 20 pages, 20 pages, and a graphic novel can be anywhere from like 100 pages to like 600 pages.
Right, exactly.
And I just wasn't really sure if it was going to change the pacing. It's actually, I think, made it easier because now I'm thinking about the real estate of every page a lot harder than I used to. So I think I'm probably cramming more story into fewer pages and fewer panels. because I'm used to working in a more condensed way.
Well, Hope, thank you so much for being with us. I feel like we've learned so much about the process and what it really takes to be somebody that's working in creator-owned as well as working with the big two, and that what you need to do to be creative artists today. So thank you so much for the insight.
Thank you.